elevator in times of emergency.
Thank you, John. Meeting minutes for the September 21st. Any corrections? I have one. The emergency evacuation was given by Mr. DeHember. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Second, please. Mike, Jim did the evacuation.
Motion to accept that change? Second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Any opposed?
Abstain also over here.
Okay. All business. Sam, you good? Okay. All business. DRG Acres, this informational meeting, major subdivision, master plan review, AP 42, lot 64, 332 Douglas Pike, 8.2 acres, 4 lots, zone R80, applicant DRG Realty LLC, engineers Garofalo and Associates. I'm sorry, ID number 23-09. Sam, are you leading this?
I guess so. Not really. Our attorney is running a little behind. He probably, no, he's not. He's right there.
Sorry, a little bit late, Mr. Chairman.
State
Attorney
your name.
John Shikachi for the applicant.
Thank you.
I'll let Mr. Hemingway continue on, then I'll interject. We've already chatted a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Sam, can you state your name and company?
Yeah. For the record, my name is Sam Hemingway. I'm an engineer with Garofalo and Associates doing business out of Providence.
Thank you.
So we're before you tonight regarding Assessors Plat 42, Lot 64. It's about an 8-acre lot on Douglas Pike, just south, on the west side of Douglas Pike, just south of Whipple. We were before this board for a pre-application. You know, by now it's been several months. The project has not really changed too much since then. We have reconfigured the lots. The most substantive change is initially the project was intended, the intent was to come in and try and rezone that property. There was some confusion on the zoning and the requirements, and we were looking to rezone to an R medium zone. There were some issues related to the minimum area, some dimensional requirements in the ordinance, making it, after circling the team, we felt like it was probably a better strategy to maintain the 2-acre lots and then go with dimensional variances because there was 8 acres total, and the applicant is looking to cut that into 4 lots. The area is available for the lots, but we needed to reconfigure the lots to get the amount of area required needed. In doing that, we are proposing to get a reduced frontage, so would require a dimensional variance through the zoning board for frontage and lot width. In addition, the configuration that we proposed requires interior angles in excess of the 200 degrees, which is under the purview of this board, but certainly would be relief required. And we pull up the layout. So I skipped past the existing conditions. What's really driving this is the good portion of the west of the plan west, which the left side of this plan is a wetland area, making it difficult to access the significant portions of the property on the eastern portion on the right-hand side of this plan. So the alignment that you see in front of you is effectively the same as the pre-application. So a private road going into the property that we are proposing a 20-foot width. So it's less than a town standard road, but certainly wide enough for the emergency vehicles and turnarounds. So that would effectively run through a 30-foot easement from frontage on Douglas Pike and access all of the development zones on the lots. But the legal frontage for those lots would be on Douglas Pike, again, at the R80, the negative to the R80 zone designation, or as it relates to getting development on this lot, is the significant frontage and setback requirements are under that zone, just because the area. So although the area is available, certainly the frontage we talked about, but also to some extent the setbacks at the rear of the property could potentially be an issue. So we are working out the best strategy to make each of those lots desirable and developable in the best way possible. Again, at this level, we haven't worked out all those details, but we have met with the TRC, got some valuable input this week regarding some configurations of the utilities, some requirements from the fire department, as well as some general input from staff, engineering and planning staff. So we are evaluating that now and do plan to continue on that front. To refresh your memory also, which as we mentioned at the pre-application, we have done some initial investigations. Certainly the wetlands have been flagged on the property, although they have not been submitted to DEM. As most of you probably know, a master plan action is required before an application can be compiled up to the state. But we have also done soil evaluations on the property for the septic systems and found certainly all of the development zones that we've identified have locations on them with suitable test holes for septic design. So, as with the other technical issues, we haven't advanced them much farther than that, and certainly don't have final designs ready. But strongly believe that each of the development zones identified does have suitable area. We probably need to tweak it as we move forward, maybe some modifications to the lines, but we wouldn't expect additional relief beyond the interior angle and the frontage as has been identified already.
Great. So you are in possession of the TQC comments?
I have seen them.
You have seen,
I
okay.
didn't get them. I just read them shortly. And I was at that meeting. There's all of those issues we talked about at the meeting. That, we're drilling down pretty deep. We were talking about some screening and the like, and we certainly can accommodate that as we move.
Yeah, I mean, the fire department's asking whether or not, maybe as an alternate, doing a hammerhead instead.
Exactly.
So, but you see nothing that would adversely affect that?
Yes, we'll certainly have to advance things and get a configuration that would work. We haven't had an opportunity to do that, but we all saw potential advantage to doing that.
Yep.
And again, probably means tweaking some of the property lines in areas, but we'll be looking to incorporate that in a preliminary submission.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for the record, I just wanted to clarify. I had a conversation earlier today with the town planner, Mr. Phillips, and there is no need for a zone change. That was a prior possible plan we were looking at. Just wanted to clarify that. At this time, we have Josh Barry. He's a certified planner who would like to present. He put a report in previously, and he's going to talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan and how he feels that what we're doing meets the purpose and intent of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Planning Board. Thank you for having me. My name is Joshua Berry. I am the town planner in Lincoln, your neighboring community. And but tonight I'm here on behalf of Rhode Island Planning Services as consultant on this project. So I won't go over many of the technical issues which Sam has already covered, but I just want to kind of talk about the review criteria and consistency with the comprehensive plan. At this conceptual phase, at the master plan phase, we're looking at basically, is this use appropriate? And does the basic general design layout work at this site? And I do believe that it does. I found, based on my review of your comprehensive plan, that this is consistent with your future land use map allocation of low, medium density residential from 1 to 2 acre lots. Obviously at the higher end of that, at 2 acre lots, 80,000 plus square feet for each lot. So on page 5 of my report, and I trust that Mike was able to get that out to you, take a look at the future land use map, and this is the only lot really in that general vicinity on Douglas Pike that has the more restrictive future land use map, and it still complies to that. So I really do feel like this is basically a conservative proposal based on only having 4 units. Furthermore, in the table land use 4, still on page 5 of my report, it says the land use changes / zoning inconsistencies. And there's a recommendation in your plan that this particular property be changed from R80 to R medium. So I'm not sure exactly why that didn't happen. This happens in many communities where there's recommendations to rezone properties that just never really happen. Perhaps Mike has more information as to that. But that would definitely provide additional density rights for this property, which this current proposal isn't even asking for. So I do feel like this is a pretty conservative proposal that's consistent with the existing plan as it is. There are numerous other sections that I cite through your comprehensive plan through pages 6 through 9 of my report, and I'm not going to belabor you and go through each of them, but I did just want to select a few that I think are most relevant. On page 6, your policy land use 1.2, encourage residential, commercial, industrial, and mixed-use areas which do not conflict with one another, are compactly grouped, attractive, and compatible with the ability of land and water resources to support the development. So throughout my report, I argue that this is wholly compatible with the abutting land uses. If you take a look at the visual on page 3, it's a town GIS map, you'll get to see the layout of lots in the area, and all of the residential lots are much, much smaller than what would be proposed here. So I do feel like this is, again, compatible with that, even on the conservative end of that analysis. Going back to page 6 on action land use 1.2, see, implement innovative planning of residential and commercial development, and continue to require conservation developments in residential zones where appropriate to address new land development and reduce the minimum lot area requirements by zoning districts. Obviously, I think there's a couple of technical issues through zoning and a couple of the waivers, but I think what this intent of this recommendation is to be innovative where appropriate. And I would argue that this is one of the cases where a little bit of bending, a little bit of waivers are appropriate for this ask, so that you can get, only 4 residential lots where all of the abutting densities are much, much greater. On page 7 of my report, policy land use 2.2, recognize the town's scenic rural landscapes, roads, wildlife habitat, sensitive resources and vistas as important cultural and economic resources, and act to preserve them. Well, I do believe that the subdivision is designed to minimize the impacts to the wetlands, which also serve to protect the aesthetic rural landscape along Douglas Pike. So really, there will be no impact from the public right-of-way, which I think is the whole purpose of restricting interior lot angles at 200 degrees. And the intent of zoning is obviously to minimize inconsistencies in the built environment. And I think the way that this proposal is designed really does that, because no one will see any difference along Douglas Pike, and really interior to the site as well. They're using the cleared area to develop the lot to the largest possible extent. And then at the preliminary plan, we can discuss further measures to mitigate any potential impacts, whether they be aesthetic or stormwater impacts. Still on page 7, action land use 3.1A, amend zoning regulations to support greater infill development in existing villages and support greater densities in areas designated as within the urban service boundary. This is within the urban service boundary, and basically this is an infill subdivision, more or less. In short, you're trying to develop this lot. There's not a lot of ways to do it, and I think this is an appropriate proposal based on the surrounding land uses and densities. Just 2 more, and then I'll move on. Page 8, policy H-3.1. As new housing development and redevelopment occurs, both low, moderate income, and market rate, ensure that it is located and designed in a way that integrates with the existing neighborhoods and enhances quality of life. Again, I think this is a sensitive design with some technical issues that we can continue to troubleshoot. But overall, at a conceptual level, I don't see a better way to design the private roadway to access the lots and to locate them in the area that's already cleared. Lastly, on the bottom of page 8, OH-5, meet the housing needs of the town's present and future population. I think it's well documented that we're in the midst of a housing crisis. I think many Smithfield residents would like to see new lots be available to them to purchase, for their kids to purchase. I think that is pretty anecdotally true across the state, but here in Smithfield, this is a perfect area for a little bit of housing development, obviously within the means of the resources that are available. Moving on to the waivers and the zoning. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. I'll take them as we go or at the end. Okay, all right. Speaking to the waivers requested and the zoning relief, I really believe that these are all technical and not substantive. I mean, the way that an imaginary line is drawn doesn't affect anybody's quality of life in the neighborhood. And really, that comes down to your frontage and width variances and also your relief for your interior lot angles. I do believe that the road width at 20 feet offers numerous benefits to the town. It's better for the environment. Obviously, less impervious surface over time, less urban heat effect. It's better for stormwater management, less impervious surface, more infiltration into the ground. It's better for landscaping. The owner at the preliminary plan will be able to landscape both sides. If you had it 30 feet wide, the actual width of that property is 30 feet, so you wouldn't be able to kind of mitigate on either side with any plantings. And it's better for traffic calming. You don't want fast traffic through a short cul-de-sac. So narrow roadways make for slower traffic. So obviously, in terms of for the town itself, you don't have to maintain the private road. You don't have to plow the road. You don't have long-term maintenance. You don't have any costs associated with it. So it's sort of a good trade-off, I believe, that you enable the 20-foot waiver, and then, in perpetuity, it won't be a problem for the town over time. I just want to briefly touch on the zoning. I think it's all consistent with the comprehensive plan, and that's the main task for your recommendation to the zoning board. But I do believe the hardships are the wetlands really preventing a different design of the subdivision, which could comply. If there wasn't wetlands, then you could basically have a public road, go right through that area, redesign it, meet your frontage requirements off of the new public road. So I believe that is one of the hardships faced by the applicant in terms of the design challenges on the site. And also that there's more restrictive zoning in almost all the abutting lots and all the abutting land uses. So I think they're overly burdened by the zoning requirements that they need to meet. For example, right behind the site, or south, I should say, you have a 40-foot rear yard setback, and there's a 75-foot that the applicant is trying to comply with, whether they need rear lot relief or, as requested now, the definition for rear setbacks. Either way, it's the same outcome. They're going to have a further rear setback than those lots that are really just abutting directly to the south. So with that, I just do want to conclude. I believe that this meets all the required findings. I've read the TRC report and the planning report. I do agree with their recommendation and their findings. I'm sure that the applicant can work through any of the technical issues through the preliminary plan phase when we're going to start to engineer more of the details. But I think at this conceptual phase, this plan works. It's compatible with the neighborhood. And I'll leave it there and answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
And Michael, you read his report. You took no objection to anything. Thank you. Do you have any more?
Oh, I think you have a question.
No, well, I just want to make sure you finish with, excuse me, Counselor. I just want to make sure you finish with your presentation before we open it up to questions.
Yes, we are, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Charlie, go ahead.
Any questions, John?
The road, narrow road, it's gonna be dark in there, you're not gonna put any lighting or anything in there, right? Now, people passing very closely, that's a long stretch, no lighting. You think it's gonna be safer, narrow, and wide?
There would be no public lighting. I'm not sure at the preliminary plan phase if that decision has been made yet as whether any level of private lighting would be used to illuminate that for safety issues. I don't think that decision has been made yet.
Because it looks, it's a dark area, you'd be safer a little wider of a road, I would think, of anything, than narrow. Especially in the wintertime, you got people could be sliding back and forth through there. Who's gonna take care of the road? Because they don't get plowed, right away, don't get sanded right away, blah, blah, blah.
Well, the good thing is there's only
Seems more dangerous.
four single-family houses that would be ever using this road. It doesn't connect to any other roadway. So only your visitors and those residents are going to be there. They're going to know the road. It's going to, so just, I think using your high beams and getting through, you'd probably be safe. I think this happens in a lot of areas throughout Rhode Island where you have long private driveways, sometimes accessing more than one lot. But I think this is something that the engineer needs to work with the applicant, not necessarily my decision on how they want to illuminate this for a safety issue at the preliminary plan phase.
But what was the reason? Why did you want to do it? I mean, is it got to do with the lot sizes? Why not just go, is it an expense? Why not just go to the 30 feet?
Well, for the many benefits that I've listed before, for environmental benefits, for the stormwater benefits, so that they can landscape either side as you come in through between the 30-foot wide distance of the two abutting properties. So if you made the roadway the entire way, then right touching that person's property line would be concrete for that road. Instead, now there's going to be at least 5 feet on each side where they can landscape and provide a little bit of buffer in between the roadway. So I think 20 feet roadways is often seen throughout the state on very small cul-de-sac subdivisions. It's not uncommon.
The reason why, another question I'm asking is the entranceway. What is the distance between the two lots there, that road? Does that have anything to do with it right there, the space there? The people in lot on the left-hand side, they're coming in there
That's 30 feet.
30 feet.
And that's why. And like I was saying, if you made it that wide, then literally at the edge of that person's property would be the private road.
Are you going to put trees or shrubs or something? I mean, what are you going to, it's going to be very close to them people's property.
Yeah,
I don't know if they're here or not.
Well, it's not on the conceptual master plan, but I did do a site visit and met the owner on the site, and he did discuss his desire to make a nice even entranceway and then landscape, especially on the abutting property to the west. There is existing landscaping there, but I think he wanted to enhance it.
I'm just wondering if there's children playing in his backyard off this lot, and you got a road right there in the dock, that's kind of close. I don't know if they're here or not, but to me, I'd be concerned about how close that is to all that right there. That's all. I'm further knowledge looking at
There's
it.
potential to put fencing or other safety measures if you think that that's appropriate. My understanding is that the lot was sold from that abutting property owner, knowing that this development, would be going in, and they've been notified of the meeting. So I think if they do feel that there's a safety issue, that they have the opportunity to speak up and let you all know that they're concerned.
Okay. That's all. I'm just want to be concerned about them. That's all.
Very good.
So they were notified. They understand it.
Oh, they're required to be noticed for this
You
meeting.
know, I understand that, but I mean, have you had any talk with them about
Not me
this?
personally, no, I have not.
You not heard of any objections coming from them?
I have not heard any objections,
All
sorry.
right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim?
This might be for the engineer. The plan for the lot to the furthest left, would that require an easement for the driveway?
Yes, and that was some of the discussion at TRC is what might, if there was a configuration of the terminus of that road that would incorporate.
That's the only way you could fit 4 lots? Is that why that is designed that way?
It had more to do with the topography at the turnaround. So although you can, I mean, physically you could build anything where the road sits best and gets a full cul-de-sac turnaround is in the location where it was put.
But to get that 4th lot,
No.
to have access to the turnaround, the only way you can do it is by an easement through
Correct.
one of the other lots.
Correct. That is what, certainly that's what's been being proposed. Again, that issue was brought up. We are looking to see if there are other ways to skin the cat, but this is the one that would initially, when we did this layout, seemed to make sense.
Were there other layouts that were proposed that you chose not to go with than this one?
Yeah, well, I think maybe at the pre-application, you may recall, we had started out with smaller lots, but effectively it was the same development program with a road in front and the lots behind, but they didn't extend all the way to Douglas to get Pike to get the frontage. So the practical, the real improvements on the ground haven't changed dramatically. It's really a question of what's the most compliant to the underlying zoning and avoiding having to go through the process of, this, trying to downzone this from 2-acre lots to the surrounding area. It's something more similar with the common area and go through all those steps and effectively end up with the same general configuration. So.
Thank you.
There you go. I have a question. The turnaround, is there any consideration of bringing that road further out to shorten the easement?
Yeah, we're actually what we are currently evaluating is the potential to review a hammerhead turnaround. So basically a T turnaround that would configure similar to this to fit well within the topography of the land and address this issue that people are talking about right now, which is a more direct to the development zone of Lot 4. There may also be an opportunity to modify the lots, although generally stay along the configuration that's shown, the frontage off the state highway, and adjust the lot lines to accomplish that same effect.
Can I ask one other question? Yep. The easement from the head of the turnaround to the house, how many feet is that?
In length,
One.
that's probably 120 feet, I think.
So a fire engine would have to stop at that hammerhead and put 120 feet of hose in order to get down to that house.
Yes, something along those lines.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Regarding the 4th lot, I guess to the left of that 4th lot, in the 3rd lot parcel, what is that area? I know it's a swamp area. Do you anticipate that area to be landscaped by Lot 3? Like, is that area to the left of the driveway? Do you know what I mean? To the left of the Lot 4's driveway in Lot 3? Do you know where I'm talking about?
Above it in.
Above
this
it,
drawing.
like, is Lot 3 anticipated basically to be responsible for landscaping across that driveway is my
I
question.
think most of that area is regulated, so I don't think by DM. So
It's
it
the
would
swamp
certainly
area?
be accessible. It's buffer area.
Okay.
So.
Like, I'm basically wondering, is that property that Lot 3 is going to be utilizing as, for their enjoyment, whatever, across that driveway? Or is it too wet?
It is primarily wet and regulated by DM jurisdictionally, but it's not, you can walk across much of it. No, I'm not sure. if I
So
answered
yes,
the
so they
question.
will, you do anticipate Lot 3 to be using the land? I'm just thinking, as a person living in Lot 3, you're crossing over the driveway
Yes.
to get to, if you're using that often or if you're not, like, I'm trying to figure out.
I
what that
think you
piece of
would,
landscape is.
I don't think it would be a difficult permit to get to put, for instance, a garage or a barn or something like that on it. It would, frankly, it would probably be difficult to clear it and put a field. It would not be, if I was the owner of that lot, I wouldn't hesitate in drier times of the year to walk my dog down there.
I see.
It'd say, this is my land and I love it, and hug my tree, so.
And then additionally, kind of riffing off Charlie's point, Lot 2 seems to have a smaller driveway than the other lots, which is fine. But I'm thinking, like, if they're throwing a party, I don't know how many cars would fit in a driveway like that, but it doesn't seem like you'd be able to park on the road with the road being
Yeah,
the
we
size it
would
is. So
not
where would-
anticipate road parking on this property. So now, all those houses are notional at best. So those are 30 by 60 blocks. We need to put something so that we can begin to understand how the site will operate. Certainly, you could have two-car driveways, two-car garages, and other configurations that are not shown on this. It's always difficult when you're talking about really massing a lot to get drilled too deep into the specifics of a home.
Yeah. Just a comment to the board, it feels like Lot 4 is like forced to me. Feels like it's kind of forced in there. It feels like it would be burdensome to the people living in Lot 4, burdensome to the people living in Lot 3 especially. I wouldn't want to walk across someone's driveway to get to the property that I own, basically, especially since it sounds like it's buildable, sounds like it's usable, it's not just wetland.
I have a comment off of that. Lot 4, what kind of mitigation are you going to do to prevent that house from becoming inundated with water, like in the spring?
It's well, elevation-wise, it's well above the
Well
wet
above it.
areas. Yeah.
And you will need an easement to bring the water line in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Could I ask Mike a question? Sure. Mike, can you go over what's been done for the comments on the TRC and what still needs to be done?
Well, keeping in mind that this is a master plan, and a lot of these are details that would be handled at preliminary. The homeowners association, all the permitting things that Kevin has in there are all done later on in the process. Soil erosion control, physical alteration permits, ISDS approvals. Those are all later on in the process. All the,
Maybe it'd be better just to say what has been completed. Probably is less.
yeah, like I said, these are all things for them to consider as they move through the design phase. So none of these things are done. These are suggestions for them to consider when they're advancing their design.
So there's going to be quite a bit to still work out.
Yeah, they've got some work to do as, And we discussed the, the option of doing the hammerhead that would eliminate some of the length of that driveway across lot 3, conceptually anyway. I mean, it should be noted that every lot is going to have a cross easement across the roadway, because that cuts across every lot except for lot 4. So they're all going to have easements going across them. So the driveway across lot 3 is, not going to be that big a thing, because everyone's going to have an easement. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, Charlie's point about the lighting, I know that, this board a while back has basically said that we're going towards a dark sky kind of mentality, where unless a light is absolutely necessary, we're not gonna propose it or require them. So, to Sam's point, that, a lot of people have private, lighting that they're gonna pay for out front, a little lamp or something to light the way, but it is a private road, and, the town is, the private road like this is more the norm. And in this next round of subdivision regs that we're gonna be looking at, we're gonna have private road standards. And this is probably the textbook example of what we're gonna have, is a 20-foot wide road. It's what, the fire department minimally wants. They want a 20-foot roadway where they can stage 2 trucks side by side with their outriggers out, and 20 feet is what they need.
What's gonna happen with trash pickup?
That's something that we looked at another subdivision recently where a similar configuration to this, maybe a little bit longer, this one, but as long as Gene can, they can prove that, the trash truck can come in and turn around, they're gonna pick up trash there. The road has to be built to town road standards to take H20 loading, so it'll be sufficient for all our emergency vehicles. From a, construction standpoint, it's just the width that's going to be, substandard.
Is the driveway easement, is that something typical that's seen in these type of situations, or not?
It happens. From time to time, you see lots like this. We have one up off of Cedar Forest Road up around where Richard was, that had a long driveway easement going through another property. Yeah. So yeah, the fact is, we're getting to the point in this town and everywhere in Rhode Island where these are the kinds of properties that are left over, and we have to find ways. We need housing. That's the bottom line. And these kind of, innovative, if you will call it innovative design, we're going to have to, we're going to be seeing more and more of this as we get down to the, smaller and smaller lots that, where we can put housing that has the acreage. We may not have all the dimensional requirements, that, of our zoning, but certainly the legislature has basically stated that they want us to build housing, and they're taking down the barriers in this next round of subdivision and zoning regs that we're going to be doing. The barriers are coming down, so things like this are going to be the norm.
Well, there still has to be a balance with what the town ordinances
Yeah, certainly.
are, and
Yeah.
just because the state says that doesn't necessarily.
No, that's true, but when you look at the density of this, these are 2-acre lots we're talking about. So, and you look around, everything, and you've got 8,000 and 10,000 square foot lots all around this one. To Josh's point about the land use map, I don't know if you recall, but when we did a rezoning back in 2020 and 2021, we looked at trying to, align our zoning with what was actually going on the ground. Our land use map showed one thing, but in looking at, development along Douglas Pike and some of these other areas, Ridge Road, we had, R20 or smaller lots by, majority, but they were zoned R80. We had huge inconsistencies between our land use, what was on the ground and what our zoning said. So what we did along there was an attempt to bring that more in line with, development patterns. And this is certainly less dense than everything around it, so.
Chair, to remember Amber's point also about the easements. Sometimes what you see is in development is the type of driveway like that, with the lots or being walking it. So what you do at times, you'll have a homeowner association that owns that road. This configuration due to their other constraints is why you're probably seeing easements there. Sometimes you see it in that mechanism as a homeowner association road, because everybody has it.
Right, and this one appears how it's designed just sticks out. It jumps out at you.
It has to do with the wetlands and
No, I know, but
and the main access.
it jumps out at you, and in a perfect world, everything, neighbors get along and you have no issues. But as I know, that's not always the case, and ultimately that can present an issue, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, Sam had brought up the fact that we had an R40 layout for this. I mean, the houses were all located more or less where they were in that R40 layout. The only difference is the lot lines are drawn across the roadway. That pre-app that I think you looked at had the lot line stopping there, but the building envelopes were essentially the same. So the density is not going to feel any different,
Yeah, I'm not so much concerned about the density. I'm not so much concerned about the frontage. I'm just concerned about the easement issue with the driveway. To me, it may cause a problem in the future, but the point was made about the fire trucks with the 120-foot length to reach that particular house. These are just some concerns that popped out looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's common. I mean, the fire department, will lay down 500 feet of hose. That's they want to see a fire hydrant within 500 feet of a development like this. So 120 feet is not a big distance for them, so.
Comment for the board. I don't know if we want to discuss that. I personally feel like lot 4 seems a little bit forced. I think the development as a whole seems well planned. The 4th lot just seems like it doesn't belong. I think to member D'Amber's point and to member Rotella's point, there's a lot of concerns. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of like five concerns. Like, what if the people in lot 4 have children? They're playing with chalk on the road. Lot 3 has a dog. They want to walk across the street, walk across their driveway to walk the dog. Like, it's just kind of, I think it's inviting problems, and it's also a little bit awkwardly configured and uncomfortable. So I know I personally would support the project, lot 1, 2, and 3. I don't think I would support lot 4, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay.
I'd like to make a point too, that I agree.
We will have a discussion, but this is a public, it's a public, yes. So we will have a board discussion.
So, Mr. Hemingway, maybe you could address that concern. Do you think a redesign of the hammerhead might lessen some of those concerns?
Yeah, no, absolutely I do. I think that there are, 2 tools that we can work with to address your obvious concern, and the same as brought up by the TRC, which is continuing to work on the lot lines themselves to try and get access directly from the main drive, from the common drive to any individual building zone, and using a hammerhead to effectively extend the road a little bit beyond that cul-de-sac area. Between those 2 mechanisms, I'm pretty confident that we can arrive at a road configuration that gets to common road, that gets to every development zone and doesn't have to cross private lots and the like. And maybe changes the lots a little bit, but I don't think would require any additional relief, only it would be different than what's shown on this plan.
So if I may make a comment, Mr. Chairman, and a recommendation, my first comment would be, we heard some questions and concerns about lighting traffic in a homeowners association. if we're go forward and continue with the process, we're more than happy to incorporate those into the plan and have responsibility in those documents. But my second recommendation would maybe to continue the hearing, have Mr. Hemingway see if he can change the configuration of the road to address some of the concerns the board has, to maybe make the physical hammerhead closer so there's no concern about crossing the easement, and see how that looks and revisit it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just want to make sure everybody good. Yep, okay. All right, we're going to open up the public hearing at 6:46. Please come up if you have something to say, state your name and your address.
How are you? Paul Shabbat, 298 Douglas Pike. I am lot 63, which is on the right-hand side. I abut the two, number 1 and number 2 lots. On my GS model, I don't have enough to pass around if you want this one, but my property actually shows it like a coffin. On this drawing, it shows it slanting off, and I'm losing property on that property line. I don't know if that was, I don't know.
Can you repeat that?
I have a disagreement with the property line on that.
Can you repeat that? You're 63?
Yes.
Okay, and you're saying that it's cutting into 63?
Yeah, see on the, you can't really see, it's on page, on the pamphlets.
I see it, yeah.
The 200-foot layout line, it shows it as being square. Mine's far from 200 feet, just straight square. On the GIS, it shows it as like a coffin, say, per se. It goes out wider as it goes back. Nope, yep, from there down. Where that little bump out is, up right there, I think it's further that way. And then on the farthest point, I'm further that way. Just what I think. See how the GIS is?
Yeah, this is based on the survey, so.
Okay.
Based on a class 1 survey.
I just said,
Yeah, so Mike, I know, but the GIS isn't exactly.
it's not perfect.
line-
No,
Yeah.
no.
yeah.
far
I
from
tell
that,
you
but-
concern, because I've dealt with that issue myself.
Yeah, I haven't had time because it's been raining, so I haven't been able to go out there and pin it, but I do
Yeah.
have all the pin locations on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And I know exactly, I want to get
Yeah,
down to
yeah,
it,
no,
but,
that's,
but just being in this town for 30 years, I just feel like it's, every time you look out the window, there's a new house going up. And this one's gonna be that number 1 lot is gonna be, I'm gonna look out my bedroom window and it's gonna be right there. I don't know what the buffers are gonna be, if we could put in like taller trees, I don't know. It's, it's taking away the rural aspect of our town, and it just feels like it's being shoehorned in there. I don't know. Just something to take into consideration. Thank you. Yep.
Your house, you're saying is your house, you're saying you're gonna be able to look out the window and see that house?
I used to see the old house, the red house. It was an older gentleman with two older women that lived in it. They were very nice. They had horses and stuff. We used to have horses on our property, so we just had to put one down. And now we can't have them, kind of taking a break from horses. But my bedroom window looked at their house, and you could barely, the house wasn't that tall. And I don't know how tall these houses are going to be or what, especially if it's on top of the hill to get away from the wetlands, it's going to be a pretty tall house, I would imagine. And I'm just seeing what
Thank
kind of
you.
buffers are going to be there, and I just have concerns
You
also.
can see that on the map, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
or wait.
Still- Anybody else for public comment? Did you want to talk to that
No,
gentleman,
I
John?
was gonna,
Okay.
I was just gonna say, are you amenable to potential landscaping with, work with the butters, that type of thing? I'm assuming.
Of course, yeah. Mr. Greco was more than happy to do whatever the board and the neighbors want for a comfort level. He wants to be a good neighbor. More than happy to do anything, buffering, etc.
Great, thank you. Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:50. Okay. Okay, does the board have any other comments or questions for the applicant? No, you good?
No, I'm good.
You good, John?
No, I just say, they mentioned potentially coming back with something different,
Yeah, yeah.
so I'm definitely in agreement with that, if that's,
But I'm sorry, so, but it won't change the variances that you're looking for now?
I'm sorry?
It won't change the variances that you're looking for?
I don't believe it'll change the variances, but we'll just change the location of the physical part of the road/easement to address some of the concerns.
Great.
We can double check it as Mr. Hemingway designs it, but I do believe it will not change that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so Mr. Chakachi has no objection to us continuing this matter to another
Not
meeting?
at all. I think it's prudent to look at the potential hammerhead and see if that's more liking for the board's viewing.
If there's no other motion, I'll make a motion to continue the matter to the next board meeting.
Yeah, that's what I want to, because Mike, when do we need to make it? It's November, right? When's the next meet, is the?
Is November 16th enough time, do you think, or do you need until December? Is November 16th adequate time, do you think, or is December better?
Well,
Okay.
yeah, okay. So is it going to give you enough time before the next meeting?
Feels that's enough time, and if it's not, we'll contact the board through staff and ask for another one.
Okay,
And you could also, hold any public letters here, they can return on that.
yes, any of butters can return, thank you. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Okay, everybody understand the motion, just to,
Motion is to continue this matter until the next board meeting for a redesigned proposal by the owner.
I seconded that.
great, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
we haven't advanced using this yet, so it's actually really good.
So I have a lot.
Bring in working off the
I just
tablet,
didn't have time to print it.
yeah,
I'm usually a hard copy type of girl, but
yeah. Nice,
it's in there.
yeah, yeah.
I'm like reading this.
Do we want to do the elections after this, or, okay, so we need a motion for that? To change the order? Take it out, okay, so let's do,
Make a motion.
So new business, GDM, ESS, LEC, ID number 2312. This is a pre-application concept review. Major land development pre-application concept review. AP 43, lot 53, 155 Mountaindale Road. 21.39 acres, zoned R90 or R80. Applicant owner GDM ESS LEC, DePreet Engineering. I'm sorry. Sure.
Good. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. John Mancini, I'm representing the applicant this evening, JDM ESS LLC, which is a component of Green Development. The proposal before you is for pre-application, and we're here this evening to share with you our proposed plans, to have a discussion with our engineers. We've brought company representatives. I have with me Kevin Moran from Green Development, who is the project engineer, has been working on this, and also specifically Eric Pavic from Depreet Engineering, who's the specific engineer for this particular project. The proposal is for an energy storage system, essentially a battery, if you will. A battery works and operates as you would think it would, and that is to essentially capture the energy and store it and then relieve it when it's needed after it's been stored for any particular period of time. It's a necessary component to the grid. It's also a component with respect to renewable energy. Green energy, as you'll come to learn, is in the renewable energy business, having done both wind and solar. It is one of the largest, if not the largest, renewable energy company in Rhode Island. We're proceeding pursuant to your table of uses, specifically 4.3 subsection D15, which is entitled Utilities, Public or Private. We would be required to obtain a special use permit for this use. So the process that we would invoke would be obviously pre-application with this board to solicit your comments and suggestions. We would then come back for master plan. We would seek a conditional master plan approval with a recommendation to the zoning board for a special use permit, and then proceed back to this board for a preliminary plan and final. So with that, this evening is solely informational, if you will. And unless you have any questions of me, I want to turn it over to Depreet and have them, oh no, I'll go through Kevin first. Yeah, I'd like to turn it over to Kevin Moran from Green Development to give you an overview of the concept, how we intend to, well, essentially what this is and how we intend to utilize this property for this specific use and who Green Development is, and then we'll shift it over to Depreet Engineering. So unless there's any questions of me, I'd like to turn it over to Kevin.
Good evening. Thank you for the record. Kevin Moran. I'm a VP of Engineering and Development with Green Development, also a registered professional civil engineer. I'm also here with Hannah Marini, who is our VP of Policy and Business Development as well. She's going to speak to, in generality, about sort of battery in the industry generally. That'll dovetail into this specific application. So we put together a PowerPoint behind you. I've got hard copies. The reduced plans are in here, which you already have. We added some slides, sort of not necessarily site-specific, but sort of general about battery. Thought it'd be good to talk about that a little bit here tonight as an introduction. So I've got 9 more. Yeah. So, wait for these to. This page down. Okay, that will change the size. So, okay. So just high level, I guess project team, which John Mancini spoke to, sort of the development entity is GDM ESS LLC. They also own the property itself. They're an affiliate of Green Development LLC, which I'm a part, Hannah's a part. So just by way of background, John Mancini, obviously our legal representative tonight. Civil and survey was done by Depreet Engineering. Electrical, not here tonight with us, but our electrical engineer is Black & Veatch, a national company. They have offices in Boston, We're working with them on this specific project. Wetlands, we use Avazinus Environmental. Edward Avazinus did the wetland delineation work. We actually have an application pending with Rhode Island DEM to verify the wetland edge. So that's ongoing with Dupree Engineering. And then as we go forward, I mean, this is sort of new, I think, to Rhode Island, to Smithfield. It's been in the news a lot, batteries, whether it's at your house, in your garage, or on a larger scale such as this. We have additional team members we will be bringing back to this board through the process at subsequent meetings, experts in batteries and safety, environmental, noise, all those types of things affiliated with batteries. So just by way of background, we've done some educational work with some Rhode Island fire chiefs already on some projects we have coming up in communities. It was just an introductory meeting. We brought our consultant in, again, new to them, and that's part of our goal with this project is to be informational, educational, as well as this project itself, bringing that detail forward. Thanks, Eric. So just high-level green development, who we are. So we're a Northeast Rhode Island-based renewable company. We a little different than most. We don't just develop projects and then sell them to someone to build, operate, multiple transactions along the way. We kind of go start to finish, get it into actually built and operating. That's our business model. So we've built, own, operate wind, solar. We have energy storage project coming up in Quonset on our own project, a warehouse building. Founded in 2009. I joined Dupree with Green Development in 2018. We have about 65 full-time employees in Rhode Island, over 168 megawatts of solar and wind, land-based wind, not offshore. Constructed to date across about 35 projects. And new to that is solar canopy. That's another new sort of progression of the work we've been doing in Rhode Island. So again, we're involved with finance, construction, project development, project management, and looking at projects also outside of Rhode Island, and have built projects outside of Rhode Island. 2002, we were ranked top 10% of 411 solar contractors in the US. So that's something we're proud of, and we've gotten good at it. And this is a sort of a natural progression of that is the battery storage aspect. So the next slide, Hannah Marini is going to speak to sort of, again, that general background information, I guess, about batteries and sort of why we're here and goals for this project. So I'm going to turn it over to Hannah.
Good evening, Hannah Marini with Green Development. So I work on policy and business development for Green. As Kevin spoke about, Green is truly a clean energy company. We've developed wind projects, solar projects. We're in battery storage, working on some clean wood projects as well. And batteries have been one of the things that for the past 15 years, we've known that it was coming, and we've known that as soon as it becomes commercially available and cost effective, it's something that's really going to help renewable energy become more useful and dependable in our society. And what we're talking about today is not batteries that are in your car or in your house or at a business, not necessarily going to help during a power outage, but these are grid scale batteries. And the reason that these are extremely important and relevant, they will help our grid be more resilient, be more secure, and help it be cleaner. And part of the reason is that So part of the reason is that a lot of the traditional power plants that we depend on in the region are either coming offline or are at risk of coming offline. So that's really important. And at the same time, we are increasing our dependence on renewable energy, which is wonderful from an environmental perspective and from our ability to generate power locally. But our entire grid in New England is controlled by, essentially, there's a room full of people at ISO New England in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and their job is to match supply and demand all day, every day, between when we use power and where it's generated. They have a giant map of every single power plant in the region. They know when it's offline, what's at capacity, when things need to ramp up. So all of our states have very strong renewable energy goals now, but it must be very difficult for this room full of people to actually guess when it's going to be windy, when it's going to be sunny. These batteries are critically important because it helps to transform these intermittent resources into a dispatchable resource for them. So instead of saying, well, this wind farm needs to make sure that all of its turbines are available, the battery can collect the energy and store it when it is abundant on the grid. For wind, that could be the middle of the night in the winter. As we know, our state is one of the leaders in offshore wind. A new RFP just got released last week for another 1,200 megawatts of offshore wind. So wind is typically very productive in the winter and a lot of times at night, whereas solar, those days, middle of May or June at noon, when we're not using our air conditioners that much yet, we don't really have that high of a demand, that's when the solar systems are very productive. So incorporating utility scale storage into the grid will help smooth out our peaks and will help actually store the energy when it's abundant, and it can be dispatched by our grid operators when it's needed. So this map, it's kind of hard to see, but you get the idea. So the blue lines are the 345 kV transmission lines, and the red lines are the 115 kV transmission lines. And this is the system that moves electricity throughout our region. So the reason that we've selected the location, and we have several others in the state as well, for this battery application, is because it is directly adjacent to a transmission level substation. And that is where utility scale, grid scale batteries belong. They belong next to pre-existing infrastructure that can help that moves the electricity so that it can be actually taken off and stored and then dispatched when called upon. So actually all of the applications that we have in the region are directly on either the 345 or the 115 kV transmission lines. So I'm showing this so you can see that it's not, this is not necessarily even a Smithfield specific thing. It is a transmission corridor specific application. I think I covered most of this at this point, but this just goes to show that the batteries are going to help relieve congestion on the transmission system, and it's going to be able to take the power when it's produced, which will help us rely more heavily on the renewables that our states are pushing for. And this is a very interesting graph. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I just want you to be able to see. So the orange line is grid power, right? So this is actually what's being what the grid actually needs to supply, and the yellow line is solar. So you can see how it spikes in the middle of the day, which is why the grid can kind of back off a little bit in the orange, and then the black line. So the blue line is wind, it kind of goes up and down throughout the day. And the black line, to me, is the most interesting, because this shows you where our peak usage is in our part of the world. It's at 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning when everyone wakes up, getting ready for work and school. And then it's at the end of the day when everyone comes home, the sun's down, and everyone turns their lights on. So the thing that the 9 o'clock peak there that you see in that last black that black spike there is one of the major issues with renewable energy right now without storage, is because when the sun goes down and everyone comes home and needs their electricity, there is no renewable energy to depend on. So our the power plants that tend to be the most expensive and the most dirty, our peaking power plants, are the ones that need to ramp up at the end of the day. So incorporating grid scale storage onto that large scale storage onto the grid will actually help smooth out these peaks and will allow our grid to be designed for more of like a high average usage rather than the top minute of demand on our grid. I think this is. This is just a similar image of the same thing. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to give an overview of why this is important and why we're pushing for it. We as the clean energy industry. Thanks.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Eric Greavy. I'm a registered professional engineer with DePrete Engineering. Office is at 2 Stafford Court in Cranston, Rhode Island. The green team gave you kind of a nice overview of why this is proposed here. What I'd like to do is talk about how it fits on the site and what we're proposing here. Again, just to remind everybody, this is the conceptual pre-application stage. So it's a 4-step process with the planning department. We have a pre-application where we're able to introduce this project, tell you what we're thinking, gather some early feedback, hear all the concerns, hear how we can address different items. Then we would come back from a master plan. Master plan would notify all the abutters, give a little more details, still conceptual in nature. And then we would come back with a preliminary plan stage with all the detailed engineering as well. So this is the very first stage. We want to introduce this project and really get some feedback tonight. Introducing the project itself, just to make sure everybody knows where we are, because this is the first time that the application has been before you when we submitted the materials. The location of the property is at 155 Mountaindale Road. More specifically, it's Assessor's Plat 43, Lot 53. More generally, it's behind, this is working, oh, excellent. It's kind of behind, for lack of a better way of putting it, Smithfield Crossing. So you can see the back of Smithfield Crossing in this area, the way that Mountaindale comes, it goes from kind of Esmond Street over here, comes across underneath 295 here. So more generally, you can see 295 going in a north-south pattern right here. Mountaindale comes around and comes over here. And then you have Pleasant Valley on the other side as well. So kind of I wanted to get you to the property first and see where we are, make sure everybody knows where this property is located. The property is zoned R80, so it has a residential 80,000 square foot density as well. It's a 21.39 acre lot. There is 450 feet of frontage located right here along Mountaindale Road. So the frontage along Mountaindale is along the southern side here. And I'm going to go to the site plan in a minute. So right now I'm looking at sheet 3. If you're following in your set, that's the Alta survey. That has the boundary survey as well. What I wanted to show on this site here is there's 2 wetlands that are located on the site as well. There is a C-series wetland that's located along Mountaindale Road here. That is a swamp that's located right here. That has a 25-foot buffer associated with it as well. Again, I think Kevin from Green had mentioned we are pending with DEM right now with the wetland edge verification too, so we can lock down the locations and have full agreement in that as well. Then in the back, there is another wetland. It's another swamp. It's a B and the E series. So one side of the wetland is the B series, the other side is the E, but internal to those 2 series is the swamp that's located here. That swamp is a little bit larger, and so that has a 50-foot buffer associated with it as well. There is no 100-year floodplain on the site, so it's Zone X, no 100-year floodplain of any streams or water bodies nearby. Topography, I'm going to switch over to a different one that shows topography a little bit better. So now I'm looking in the upper left corner of sheet 3, if you're following in the set, and that shows the topography in the site as well. So again, just to get everyone oriented real quick, that is the frontage along Mountaindale Road here. That's the 450 feet. That is the swamp that I mentioned that's in the front with the B series, and the swamp that's located in the rear as well. General topography is the high point. There's a ridge, high point of the hill that is located over on the western portion of the property here. You can see that's around elevation 470 over here. And there's a small ridge that goes kind of in a east-west pattern right here, and that's what splits right here. So with that ridge, you have a portion of the watershed that comes to the front, to the stream right here, and then there's a portion that comes to the north and goes to that rear swamp over there as well.
What's the scale of the contours?
Those are 2-foot contours, actually. It's 2 foot, so 2-foot contours, yeah. With the bold ones, so the bolder ones that you can see on there, those are 10-foot contours. So right here, sorry, the bold ones, the darker ones are 10-footer. So if you want to kind of use those as a context as well, but on your plan, they actually go as tight as the 2-footers on there as well. The soils on the site as well, they are Canton and Carlton sandy loam, so they're all very, very suitable for development as well. I'm going to go to the proposed drawing now. So now I'm looking on the right side of sheet 5, which is the sketch plan here as well. So what's being proposed is a 65 megawatt energy storage facility. So again, get everybody acclimated real quickly here. That's the 450 feet along Mountaindale with the wetland in the front and the wetland in the rear. The energy facility would be located right here centrally on the property as well. So that's, as I mentioned, a 65 megawatt that would be able to store directly on site for a 4-hour duration. The nearest one, I was able to take a look here. The nearest actual battery location from Mountaindale is over 600 feet from the road. So we're proposing to have a access road directly off of Mountaindale here. You can see it's coming up here and it comes up. It's a 20-foot wide access road here. We envision it being as gravel, a hard packed gravel, but there may be, depending on, we'll have to look at it in future stages, depending on what the grades are and the approach coming in this area. Some of those might need to be impervious as asphalt, depending on, we want to make sure it's a stabilized grade in that area as well. And then around the actual facility itself, there would be an access road that goes around the outside. And then each of the batteries would be placed on a crushed, stone base in this area as well. The entire facility up around the actual energy storage up here would have an 8-foot tall fence around it as well in this area. We do have an area for a substation as well that would have for the connection. Again, as mentioned, this has directly adjacent to the power line over here. So this is the 115 kV that would be tying into over here. So we're showing how that would come across with the tie-in. So you'd have the on-site substation coming with the tie-in to the line, and that's where the existing transmission line is today. So it's directly adjacent. This land that is next to us that we're directly adjacent to is the grid land. So we have direct access to be able to go through there as well. We showed some conceptual drainage as well. As I mentioned, the topography rolls from kind of west to east here, so it's going from left to right on the screen. So we would be taking that with the stormwater as well. So as I mentioned, it would be stone in most areas, so we believe that would be able to stay on site, but there's always a bit of runoff that comes. So we also have some detention areas that are located on site for some water quality treatment and all of the items that would be required by both your stormwater regulations and Department of Environmental Management's regulations as well. So conceptual at this stage, we would have to proof it out into future stages, obviously, as well. We are maintaining all wetland buffers. So as I mentioned, there is a 50-foot buffer located here. We are staying outside of all of the DEM wetland jurisdictional areas as well. We're not proposing to do any work within the buffers or the setbacks in those areas. We do have a location for a fire protection cistern. So that's located right here as well. It would be right at the top of the hill. Again, we'll continue to work with the fire marshal, Smithfield Fire Marshal, and make sure that any fire protection, any access, any services that need for fire protection purposes, we would continue to work with them throughout the process as well. But we do have a location for a fire protection cistern because there's no municipal water in this area at all. So it's not, we couldn't put a hydrant on site. So we have to do it through a cistern process here as well. There are no utilities that would be proposed on the water sewer end. Again, it's a energy storage. There's no need for water service, a well or any water service or septic as well in this area. We did show some conceptual landscaping again as well right here at the entrance because this is adjacent to some residential areas. So for the 20-foot wide access road, as I mentioned, there's an access road right here off Mountain Dale. We would have some conceptual buffering up in this area. Again, no details at this time, but we will be providing more at future stages as well with that to provide a little extra screening at the entrance. That's about what I had as far as I wanted to kind of introduce it, tell you a little bit about the project, and really we're here to listen tonight. We want to hear your thoughts and be able to hear where your concerns are and how we can continue to craft this application into future stages. So thank you for allowing me to do this.
So what is the existing vegetation?
It's fully forested today.
It's fully what?
Forested. It's wooded. It's wooded today. Yep.
So how many acres are you going to be cutting to put this in?
To be honest, I didn't actually do an area of the area at the top, but I would guesstimate. It's a 24-acre site, and 21-acre site, and I'm looking at it. It's probably about 8 acres, if I'm kind of, or 6 to 8 acres along that piece of the hill.
Sure.
The whole I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
You have a better idea. It looks more than that.
Yeah, if I could add to that too.
More than 8 acres.
So conceptually on the plan, this hatched area, it's noted on the plan as a potential open space conservation, something like that, potentially to be added into the Mercer conservation area to the north. So that's about 8.7 acres plus or minus. Again, this design isn't complete at this stage, but on that order of magnitude. So that leaves about 12.7 acres on the balance. So of that, this footprint is easily half. So it's probably in that 6 to 8 acres of disturbance, clearing, activity, roughly.
Clear cutting now. You're going to, all the trees are gone.
Yeah, I think with the grading that we'd envision and the improvements, there's no need for any excessive clearing like shading for solar because that's not a component of this. So it would be just the limits of work, not beyond. Thanks. Just wanted to elaborate on that a little bit.
That's a
Great.
question.
And one question. So you mentioned fire. My understanding with these batteries that, water doesn't put these things out, right? So,
Yeah, so we've got, we've been working for probably the better part of 2 years, year and a half with a national consultant. They're technology agnostic. They don't care what battery system you're using as far as the vendor. They test these in their own facility. They do, they've worked in New York City, probably one of the toughest areas to work on batteries and nationally. They've worked across the country. Company called Energy Safety Resources Group, ESRG for short. That's someone we envision bringing in to speak more to exactly those types of questions and issues and concerns as we go forward.
that would be a huge concern of mine is how do you put these things out? My understanding is they just have to burn out. And you've got, with all due respect, 6 acres of things burning.
Yeah, and I think
what that does to the environment.
Yeah, I think it's partly the technology. What they have is their safety. There's all kinds of regulations from NFPA, UL, International Fire Code. There's a whole layers of regulations around these, and they are the experts. So we're going to let them come in and educate, and inform, educate, and talk about those specific questions.
Okay.
Yep.
Are you able to talk about the fire mitigation measures at all at this time? Or is this premature?
I think it's premature to get into specifics. I think part of it is safety of responders. So hazard mitigation plan is something we look to this consultant to prepare. How a response would occur. Usually if there's a failure in the battery, it's in one location, one queue, one pod of many. The idea is just to keep it contained to that point of failure. I think putting water on it is the essence of what they'll probably speak to, but we'll let them. And they're they don't just, they've been asked, I think, to create regulations and standards, and their response has been, we're not gonna just write it because it evolves, it changes. We may see something over there that we wanna change our standard, so we don't want it written down in a hard and fast, state regulation. It's really something that they're involved right through commissioning. So they're sort of a beginning through commissioning operation consultant that we would engage to help us with all these questions.
But we need to feel comfortable, even though they're not going to want to write it down. We need to feel comfortable that this is the correct thing for this town.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Question. Okay. You said there's a couple high spots. In order to put this facility in, you're going to have to blast?
We don't, again, we're at pre-application stage. We haven't done soil testing with excavations
The
and
reason I'm
such yet.
asking is because that whole area is fueled by wells for the households.
Yep.
And if you start to blast, you can change what's
Sure
happening
can.
to the wells on the properties. I'd like to see a better schematic of exactly where each house is along Mountaindale. Because I drove up there and there's some pretty close to where you're going to put that opening. Now, these people bought up there for the rural aspect of the community. This is going to change that. I've done some reading, and these facilities tend to give off a little noise. I don't know if that's going to affect some of the homeowners that are there. Also, we have a natural corridor where the wildlife go through, especially turkeys up in Mountaindale. There's always a flock of turkeys going through. They're not going to be able to get through this facility like they would with a solar farm because you've got an 8-foot fence. They're not going to be able to get through and go around. Also, this is a natural heritage area. What are we dealing with as far as stone walls, old cellar holes? What's on the property up there?
As far as our preliminary investigation for cellar holes and stone, we didn't see anything like that as far as that, no. We did have, Avazinos did do some natural heritage of looking at the resources in the area, and, we'll be able to provide more of those details at the next stage. But yeah, there was there was some questions on some of the vegetation in the area and such, so we do have more details on that we can provide. Yeah.
That's a very windy road. Are we going to have trucks going up in there? And what happens if something happens to one of those batteries and it leaks into that wetland area? And also, I'd like to know, these facilities, are they prone to being hit by lightning? That's a very high spot in the community. That's it.
Yep, thank you. I wrote them all down, so thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I? Am I correct that on the right-hand side, the white blocks, are those residential areas? Residential, are those homes?
So, yeah, hold on, I'm gonna go. It's not over here.
And the ones on the street don't show up very well because there are houses right along the
Yeah,
street.
I know that. I'm asking about those, that and the other two above it.
Yeah, right here there is. And then there is right here.
The white blocks are not the
The
houses.
white blocks are not, sorry, the white blocks are just,
Soil designation.
yeah, soil designations, but there are directly on there as well.
And the, any idea of what the distance is between the battery station itself and the residential homes?
Yeah, I can scale that, actually. I have even though this is a to scale. So the one that I'm seeing is the closest is this one, I believe.
Yeah, that,
I believe that's the closest one. So per my scale, and again, I think in the master plan preparations, I think we can add some dimensions of each of these so everybody can see exactly where those are. Sure, I got, this one's to scale too. Okay. I got about 300 feet between the back of that house that's nearest right there to the nearest corner of the actual battery. 300.
Actually, actually, what
Requested.
I am.
What kind of noise
It
will
went
this
to the humming.
generate on an average?
Went to the humming. In fact, over in the United Kingdom, they've got regulations as to how far the houses have to be from these facilities.
Interesting.
Yeah, as far as noise, real quick, it is something that's definitely on our radar. We actually engaged a consultant to do some ambient noise monitoring on the property that's been completed. We're still going through that information and looking at this project, how that correlates with ambient noise, the town's ordinances. So that's something we would bring forward at the next stage as
And
well.
not only for the people that live there, but also for the wildlife. What's this gonna do to the wildlife? Changing their patterns of how they migrate that area.
Mr. Chairman? Joe, I got a question.
This side.
My question is more of the business model, just so I have a good understanding. The very nice presentation about relief from the grid. But am I correct that you're a separate corporation that has no direct connection to PPL?
Yeah, we're not affiliated with Rhode Island Energy directly. We're not part of Rhode Island Energy, PPL, ISO, New England.
So how does the relief go? By selling your energy stored back to PPL? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's, you want to speak to that?
Just briefly, yeah.
Yeah.
So the capacity to be able to store energy is something that is valuable to the utility and to the grid operators. We have seen other states put procurement mandates in place for storage. And there's a docket moving through the PUC now that would put some hopeful, their goal is to kind of put some timelines onto procurement mandates for storage in our area. But the utility companies do go out to bid often for things like non-wired alternatives are called, to actually alleviate congestion on the grid. And this is one of the technologies that they're looking at as a solution.
But it's through a private company, not the grid itself, through
Yes.
ownership of that means. And the business model is the way you make money is by selling that stored energy back to the grid?
Yes, that is one of the business models.
And in terms of how the energy is stored within the batteries to begin with, can you explain to us how that is done? Where do you draw the electricity to store into the battery?
So the connection to the grid is going to be essentially a two-way street. So the connection to the grid here is essentially a two-way street. So we would be able to draw energy from the same transmission lines that we were also able to export onto.
So, yeah, so you take it at a lower rate, sell it
Yes.
back at a higher rate, and when they need it?
Yes.
And you store it when there's excess?
Yes, exactly.
Mr. Chairman, would there be agreements in place between the National Grid or Rhode Island Energy or whoever owns the transmission lines in your group before this project begins or at some point during the project?
So we are in we're in the early stages of our interconnection study, which in this case is actually not with Rhode Island Energy. It's because it's transmission. We're actually The project is being studied by ISO New England, who's their grid operator. These are lengthy studies, they're expensive. So we would anticipate at the conclusion of that study to have those types of agreements in place.
Will we be able to see that agreement?
I believe that it's publicly available information. I'm sure not the details of the specific contract, but especially if it's especially if the contract's with a regulated utility, I believe that's
It's going to
publicly
have to go
available.
to PUC.
I'm not sure about the specifics if this specific project will have to go through the PUC because it's ISO New England. It's a grid, it's higher than Rhode Island. It's a regional project, not necessarily a state project.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question has for the design, security on that place, the lighting, the light pollution, what kind of lights you're gonna have on that, what kind of security, the gauge of that fence. It's a good idea, but there's a lot of nuts out there in the world. So my concern, I didn't see security, it said 8-foot fence. What gauge chain? Is that, I mean, somebody cut it with a wire cutter or?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we'll have to come back with more detail on it.
I would like to see
Yeah.
a very strong, I like the idea, I think, everything like that, but security, nuts, what kind of lighting you're gonna have around it.
Yeah.
Not too bright, it bothers everybody, but there's people that are not gonna like that being there, and it's gonna be a problem for a while, so security around that facility is gonna be a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an issue that we were at a conference, I was at a conference about a month ago with, a large conference out west, and security was one of the focal points nationally because of concern issues that grid, operators of transmission, people shooting substations, just things like that. So it's on their radar.
It's a very tough situation, especially in this town. It's gonna be, if it does go forward, there's gonna be problems. And so I'd like to see a real nice security. I'd like to see it go forward. I think it's a good idea, but a nice security system would be,
Yeah, I mean,
nice gauge wire, not something, like I got my dog in, something.
I think it would be probably comparable to what you'd see at the substations that National Grid has, maybe not quite at that level, but it's not a manned facility, so it's not someone there full time, although cameras certainly are likely to be there to be seeing what's going on.
I think cameras, lighting so it doesn't affect, the people who live around there, and a nice fence would be very, very smart.
So, excuse me, you mentioned you were on a conference of security. What is the issue with the security? What do you?
Well, they were talking.
If it goes down, it goes down, right? I mean, you're just not being able to sell it back, right? Or is it fire and stuff like that?
No, I think it was more, security, like they had issues, I think, in the Washington area, if I'm not mistaken, in the Midwest.
More so last year, there were 4 or 5 instances of people either using gunfire to sabotage grid infrastructure or other means, other ways. And I think, if I'm right, that's what Charlie's referring to.
Yeah.
You said protesting too, they're protesting in Arizona.
I just know it was a topic of discussion. No one got into specifics as to how they're dealing with it, what their safety protocols are, because they don't want that information really public. Other than that, it is an issue that they're all looking at. In that. Yeah, no, that's a question I think we'll bring back to our consultant too. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any documented studies on these batteries emit anything negative to the environment? Or do they regularly vent at all, any energy or whatever may be out there?
Yeah, we'll bring some information. They don't vent regularly. I think it would be if there were a failure, ventilation is a component of that safety measure. So I think we would ask, again, our consultant to kind of be ready. They'll be ready to answer all these types of
Yeah, 'cause
questions.
just like the power lines, there's
Yeah.
studies done about that, what they
Yeah.
emit out, and this is stored energy too, so it's important for us to know if there's anything going into the environment.
Yeah, I mean, they've done UL tests with, intentionally failed components and then monitored what that does, what is the outcome of that. So we'll let them be ready for that.
A lot of my questions were already asked and answered, but I just wanted to echo, since I know you guys are in the preliminary stages, I was also concerned about the acreage that was being cut down to create the facility. It sounds like it's pretty minimal in the grand scheme of things. I think adding on to Mercer's would be nice, since that is a very important piece of, in Smithfield, it's a big attraction. We're big on open space here, so I think that would be nice. But that's it. I think overall, this could be a really good, I'm a big fan of renewable energy personally. I feel like it'd be a good option to have if, you know, everything else works out, but I'm interested to see further plans.
Just a couple of things. Maybe for Anna, you talked about these batteries taking the peak off. How many facilities like this in Rhode Island do you have to get to really make an effect on that peak?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure. That's a really good question. Kelly, do you have a guess? We'll get back to you on that. We'll see if the answer is available anywhere, and if it is, I'm actually really curious too. But definitely more than this one. But we probably have half a dozen or so projects that are similar to this, also in areas along the transmission corridor in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. And there's others. There's a lot more in Massachusetts in the queue than in Rhode Island right now. So it is something that is necessary. But so the interesting thing is too that what we're talking about now is grid scale, but people have batteries in their houses right now attached to their solar systems, for example, and there are programs in place. There's programs that say at peak time, and the battery owner will get paid for it, small scale, at peak hours, please come off the grid and just draw from your battery during these peak hours, and users will actually be compensated for it. So there's other ways to, there will be more than one solution to actually help with that peak shaping that we're talking about, and incentivizing behavior is one of them too.
Another question regarding Freedom's big swath right into this town. Is there a prohibition against doing this within the right of way?
In our experience, yes, they've been really restrictive about actually putting privately owned infrastructure in their right of way. Tends to be very difficult. The connections, they allow the connections, but I mean, we've run into issues that, you know, we've owned property on both sides, for example, and they've given us a very, very hard time, like years worth of hard time of building a driveway on our own property under their transmission line. So yes, and part of the reason is that even though it is, the sister company of Rhode Island Energy, it's very much, it's New England Power Company, so it's their transmission arm. I was trying to think of an analogy of like Wicked Witch of the West versus the East, and she says she's even worse than the other one, but it's as I can do.
Chair?
So do I. Oh.
Mr. Chairman? Sure. One other question.
Yeah.
One other question. Has your company built a facility like this anywhere in Rhode Island?
Not yet, but we have two projects that are significantly farther along. So this will not be the first that we build, but we have not yet. And the reason is that these utility studies, as I mentioned earlier, can take 2 or 3 years in some cases. So they're not done yet.
What communities?
I don't know if I can mention that? I don't know if I'm at liberty to
All right,
discuss that just
can you
yet.
research that and let us know?
Yes,
next
I
time?
will check on when we're willing to talk about those publicly.
Have you built any in Massachusetts? Have you built any, or are these?
There are no large-scale batteries that are fully operational in our area yet. The biggest one close by is Pasco Utility District, and which is a couple of megawatts. But there are dozens of projects in the queue in the region that are either being studied or about to be studied. So this Smithfield will not be, the first community that has to that's being asked to host one of these projects. There will be lessons learned. There will be you'll have a lot of resources ahead of you.
Do you have a decommissioning program?
We will, and so the group that Kevin mentioned earlier, ESRG, they are actually going to be, they're partners with us throughout a lot of these battery specific elements of our application.
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Since you're dealing directly with the transmission companies, can you say there's going to be a direct benefit to Rhode Island residents with this?
There is, by way of, the resiliency component of it is really important. Right now, because our grid is regional, Rhode Island contributes very little by way of power generation to the region. Offshore wind is going to be our time to shine. That's what we're actually contributing to the region. But right now, because of lack of storage and lack of dispatchability of these intermittent assets, it's not, I don't see how it's going to work very well without projects like this. So the benefit is that our energy will be generated more locally and in a much cleaner fashion.
Yeah, so it's more a bigger picture thing from Rhode Island
Yes.
standpoint, that delivery to us, it's something that everyone who gets it
Yes.
improves.
Well, I think those are pretty specific to Rhode Island, but as far as like
Yeah, not, you're
an
gonna see
individual like
reduction in
paycheck or
rates
something,
or any, that type of thing isn't gonna.
I would hope so. That's more of those are rate docket type of things that would need to get decided, but the costliest times of day and of year to meet electric demand are during those peak times, because you end up having to call on those peaking power plants. So this should alleviate some of those more expensive times that we purchase electricity.
Thank you.
Oh, and reduce our reliance on natural gas. So the reason that our rates keep going up so much is because over 90% of our electricity right now in Rhode Island comes from natural gas. And in the winter, people are increasingly heating their homes with natural gas, and we're using it for our electricity. So natural gas is the reason that supply rates double in the winter months. So this will reduce our reliance on natural gas. So in theory, costs should come down.
Question from Mr. Phillips. Got a question for you. A couple questions. Financial questions.
I'm not a finance guy.
No. When we're building things around, there's a bond. Sometimes we had a problem where a bond wasn't enough before. Is this going to be bonded, or how is the finance, say something financially goes crazy on this? Are we stuck with like how are we going to be guaranteed that this is going to get finished? And we're not going to be responsible for cleaning up anything.
I mean, we have mechanisms to do restoration bonds, like if you got in there and cleared everything and, started working and something happened and the company went belly up and we're left with a pit. We have done that where we've had, restoration bonds posted to, reclaim the site. So that is a mechanism that we could look at.
Yeah, like I said, I don't want to see, another concern, like we've had developments where we've had to do the paving or something, this is going to be done, we got to finish that, we got to finish this. But other than that, another question I was wondering about the plus here. What is the tax, what kind of tax money are we going to get from this, if any?
I couldn't tell you. We'd have to have our assessor look at it and put a value on it, and they'd have to assess it. So I really couldn't tell you what they would. I mean, the utility company is one of the largest taxpayers in the town.
They wouldn't be getting a free.
Their facilities, no, they wouldn't be getting, no, because even the utility pays taxes. So all their equipment and stuff that they own.
Is there any way we can find out what, like a, a basic idea, for like,
We could have them look into what,
so we could tell the taxpayers, say, listen, well, you're not just gonna get an ISO, you're gonna get a school. Something, positive.
yeah, we could certainly have them look at the financial end of it from a tax
It
standpoint.
sounds like a
So-
very big project, you know what I mean? So I'd like to see some kind of like guarantee that's gonna get finished in a pro, how much money we're gonna make, that kind of thing.
Yeah, those are all certainly things that we can ask for, sure.
Thank you.
Charlie, I think the people in the area are going to be very concerned about the values of their houses. They have bought houses in a rural area that already has transmission lines. Now, they bought them maybe farther enough away thinking they were safe. And now all of a sudden, we're going to hit them with this. Yeah. We have to think about the town people to protect them.
So they like you were saying about the lot, sometimes we just have to change things,
This is a little, it's untested yet, to be honest.
So for people that might be inconvenienced, for county benefit, that kind of stuff. So that's the only reason I want to see the financial, I'm not saying that anything about it, not just see it. Make sure the finances are gonna be all right, and we don't get stuck with anything.
You need to drive up that road and see what the character of the environment is up there. It's extremely rural. Yeah.
Anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Obviously, we've received your comments, very helpful. We're going to go back and at the next stage at our master plan, you'll see a much more developed presentation, specifically addressing issues of security, issues with respect to noise and environmental impact, animals and habitat, similar to you, as you would with solar development, but this isn't a solar development. It's completely different. But the issues that you raise are noteworthy, and I think that in having done these in some of the other communities, and we'll express that further, fire is a key component to this, and so we'll focus heavily on fire. And security is a key component, so we'll focus on that. We'll also have an environmental impact study to address for the town what the benefits are from a financial standpoint, and what the difference is with not having this, so to be. But with that essentially is what we have. We will see you at preliminary plan, at master plan. And additionally, know that this process starts at master plan, but we'll also have to go through the zoning board for a special use permit. And so this board will have the opportunity to vent these issues and also implement conditions to mitigate concerns. And the zoning board will also have that opportunity.
One more question. You said the fence is 8 feet tall. How tall is the building itself?
Well, the buildings, it's not a building, so they're
I know,
pods. So the pods will probably be no higher than 15 feet.
Yeah, the battery containers, again, varies from vendor to vendor, but on the order of 10 feet, give or take. Kind of like almost similar to a storage container.
Yeah.
As far as the scale.
Think of them as those pods that you see, those storage pods. It's essentially what these things are going to look like and what they are. They're just, I mean, look, it's an easy concept. What we're doing is warehousing energy, and our customer it's either New England Power or PPL, whatever they call themselves, and that's it. This isn't going to go out to everyone. And I can assure you, as we do a lot with National Grid and PPL, which are taxes and tax assessments, municipalities love taxing utilities because they know they're going to get paid. And this will operate in the form of a utility. Okay. Thank you.
So the next is the master plan review.
Next is master plan.
Right, okay.
Master plan,
I'm still a rookie after all. Good thing there's no hazing ritual. This was interesting though tonight.
David, do you do start the elections, or do you chair the elections?
Well, we can accept, yes, I can run it for you if you wish.
Yeah, I think I think Scott did it last time, so.
We're on your regular agenda, old business election of officers is the table. We welcome you,
Sorry, yes.
Just welcoming you.
Oh, thank you.
Being appointed.
Thank you. I rushed to get sworn in yesterday. Thank you to the town council person for the appointment. Mr. Vice President.
So you're here to take nominations tonight. I'll accept any nominations for the chair.
I'd like to nominate Mr. DeAmber.
We have a second with,
Second.
anyone else want to nominate anybody for the chair?
I'll nominate John Yocum, who has he's done it in the past.
Is there a second on his nomination?
I'll second that.
Do we have a third nomination?
Who's Mr. Moon?
So once. Those nominations, and what we will do is we'll take a vote on the nominations. So what I'll do is, we'll do it by poll. Okay? The nomination for Mr. DeAmber, Mr. Yocum.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Hold on 1 second, I just gotta.
So this is for the nomination for Jim.
Yes.
Yeah.
Member Bowe.
Jim's fine.
Member Boyd.
Aye.
Member DeAmber.
Aye.
Member Colavecchio.
No.
Member Manning.
Aye.
Member Rotella. Aye. Member Lynn. Aye. 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 6 votes have it. We'll now do Member Yocum. Member Aye. Member Rose.
This is crazy.
We have
What do you
voting for- We have to just confirm his nomination.
Okay. Nay.
Member Boyd.
Nay, thank you.
Nay.
Member Colavecchio.
Aye.
Member Name.
Nay.
Rotella. Member Nay. Based on the votes, Member DeAmber is nominated to be the chair. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay, next nomination for vice chair of the board. Do you have any nominations for the vice chair?
I would nominate Member Boyd.
Second.
Any other nominations for the vice chair? There's a nomination for the vice chair.
I'd like to nominate John Yocum, vice chair.
We have a second, Mr. Yocum. Member Yocum for the vice chair. Any other nominations? Okay, we will start the vote for Member Boyd as vice chair, Member Yoder. Nay. Member Boyd.
Aye.
Member Vieira.
Aye.
Member Colvecchio.
No.
Member Manning.
Aye.
Member Rotella. Aye. No. Take a poll vote for Member Yocum as vice chair. Member Yocum. Aye. Member Lopez. Nay. Member Boyd.
Nay.
Member Vieira.
Nay.
Member Colvecchio.
Aye.
Member Manning.
Nay.
Member Rotella. Nay. Member Webb. Yes. Based on the votes, Member Boyd is elected vice chair, 5 votes in favor, 4 against.
Thank you. Congratulations, everybody.
Last one is secretary.
I'd like to nominate Joe Rotella for secretary.
And second. Any other nominations for the secretary? Joyce? Last call, any other nominations for the secretary? Having been none, the other nomination is Rotella, we'll go to a vote. Member Yocum. Aye. Member Lopez. Aye. Member Boyd.
Aye.
Member Vieira.
Aye.
Member Colvecchio.
Aye.
Member Manning.
Aye.
Member Rotella. Aye. Aye. Member Rotella is nominated to be the secretary.
The only unanimous one.
Right?
Killed off
Chair of the board can step forward and take a motion to.
The schedule available.
Schedule? Oh, I'm sorry.
So the last matter is the discussion of the 2024 Planning Board meeting schedule. I believe that was proposed and prepared, provided to everyone. Does anybody have any comments, suggestions? Everybody appear to be acceptable with the proposal?
Mr. Chairman, move for approval of the schedule and the closing dates.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All not in favor? The ayes have it. All in favor?
Picture on McGraw.
Aye. Motion adjourned.